Yep, like I have said in the past, every few years we get an astronaut movie. The Martian, First Man, Ad Astra. It's been a few years since then. Understandably, of course. Although for this one, there was like no marketing for it. You might not have even heard of it. You might have seen this on your feed and been like, what's that movie he's reviewing? Yeah, I saw the trailer for this online like once, but the premise intrigued me, so I went to go see it. So now here's my review. I.S.S. So I.S.S. takes place, guess where? That's right, on the I.S.S. Good job. The International Space Station, which for those of you who don't know, that is a real thing that we do have. So here's the premise. Ariana DeBose plays an astronaut. She's a bioengineer. She's new to the ISS, so now including her, there's a crew of 6 people up there. 3 American, 3 Russian, and they're all getting along just fine because there are no borders up there. But down on Earth, we see that war has commenced between the US and Russia. That'll cause some tension, and then both sides get orders from the ground to take control of the ISS by any means necessary. So now you have 3 American astronauts and 3 Russian astronauts who are at odds. They're like, what to do in this situation? Yeah, that's a pretty intriguing premise, isn't it? At least I think so. But let me put it like this. This is a January released movie. I mean, I heard it was shown at some film festival last month, but for all intents and purposes, you know, its theatrical release is in January. So it's a January released theatrical movie with no marketing, and it's about 90 minutes long. How does that sound to you, you know? Not much is expected from this movie. I don't even think the studio expects much from this movie, or the cast or its crew. But I will say this movie is not completely terrible. I don't know if I would exactly call it memorable, but this movie, I really felt like it did try its hardest. First off, Ariana DeBose is the main character in this movie. Was not in my bingo card. For those of you who know her, you know her as a singer. You know, she's into theater and stuff. She's in West Side Story. She won the Oscar for that movie for Best Supporting Actress. She was the voice of the main character in Wish. I forget the character's name. Asha. Now she's an astronaut. But lo and behold, she is pretty good in this movie. I mean, there are scenes where she is acting her ass off and you really do feel it. And like, yeah, she deserved that Oscar for sure. Because it really does feel like she is giving it her all here. I bought her emotions every time. And then there are some phases where I was like, hey, I didn't know that actor's in this movie. Like Chris Messina, it took me a second to recognize him, but I recognized him from Birds of Prey. I'd call his character the astronaut with the most experience in this movie, on the American side. And I'll say he was fine. There was one point where I thought he was overcooking it a little bit. But then the third American astronaut, I knew his face for the longest time, and I couldn't place it. Then his name came up in the credits. I was like, oh my god, that's John Gallagher Jr. from 10 Cloverfield Lane. Haven't seen him in a movie in a long time. Holy shit. Because 10 Cloverfield Lane is one of my all-time favorite movies. My god, I guess I just couldn't recognize him without the mustache and the baseball cap, but he was pretty good in this movie too. I guess it's like light content. Just like 10 Cloverfield Lane is for the most part a bottle film, I.S.S. is also a bottle film, which for those of you who don't know is a film that just takes place in one location. There's your film terminology lesson for the day. And then on the Russian side, there's only one actor I recognized. He was Euron Greyjoy in Game of Thrones. This guy's always good. I've seen him in a few movies. In fact, he was probably the most interesting character in this entire movie to me. Props to him. Now, like I said, this movie, it's not memorable, it's not terrible, it's serviceable. I mean, this is an astronaut space movie, so you expect the visual effects to be pretty good, and they are. As far as how they looked, it looked decent, you know? I mean, you have these shots where it's looking down at the Earth and you see that there is war going on down there. You're like, holy shit, what does it really look like down there? You start thinking about it. It piques your curiosity for a few minutes. The bummer is in how it was shot. I mean, you have these shots of the ISS where it's going over it, and yeah, it looks alright, but that does bring me to my biggest problem in this movie, and that is the tone and the pacing. The two are kind of in simpatico here. This movie's just 90 minutes long, which I guess is a good enough runtime for this story, but it does just kind of go through the motions. This is actually going to be pretty tough for me to pinpoint exactly what I'm trying to say, because the movie is slow paced. I can't deny that. But at the same time, it didn't feel like the drama sunk in enough. The drama of this situation that is really serious. Maybe it was the size of the screen because I'm so used to seeing movies in either Dolby or IMAX. This was just a regular theater screen, so the movie wasn't as big or loud as I'm used to. In fact, that's probably it. But that aside, I do think there is some blame to place on this movie's tone. If for nothing else, it helps my case. I mean, this movie did have its heart in the right place, for sure. And it actually did quite a few things right. Like the attention to detail. There were points where I was like, all right, if that happened, then this should be happening as a result, vaguely speaking. And those results were happening. I was like, all right, props. The filmmakers, they knew what they were doing. Not a bad job at all, director of Blackfish. I think it's just for a space movie about astronauts, you want the drama of the seriousness of the situation to be explored and exploited to its fullest. Because as far as what I can think of, astronaut is like one of the most serious professions out there, ever. Everything has to be pinpoint perfect, nothing can be messed up, and as far as this movie's story goes, it's unrealistic for sure, oh my god. I do not think if this were to happen and America and Russia were to go to war with each other and send those orders up to the astronauts in the ISS, that those astronauts would go about the situation like they do in this movie. So in the end, ISS, I do commend it for not being complete January shit. That in and of itself is an accomplishment. Oh, the score. Before I forget, I almost did. I will say the score is actually pretty good in this movie. I mean, astronaut movie scores usually are pretty good, and this one's no exception. You got some eerie, dissonant vocals in there. Those are really cool. Something bad will be going on. There'll be this eerie tension in the room. The score absolutely does reflect that. I do want to give that props. If for nothing else, the score is probably one of the best parts of the movie. But getting back to it, in the end, ISS, like I said, it's not completely terrible, it's not memorable, and it is serviceable. It's a filler movie, you know? You're like, what's coming out this weekend? Oh, nothing. I've seen everything else. But I got some free tickets. Say, this movie's not completely terrible, I guess I'll go see that while we wait for Argyle. The acting in this movie is pretty good. The visuals are good. The cinematography could have been better, but the music is good. Just the pacing and the atmosphere and tone, they could have been way better. The movie just doesn't come across as epic as I feel it should have. And that is a pretty big minus point here. Yeah, it went from this movie could be really cool to I'm probably not going to remember this movie in a couple of days. But credit where it's due, this movie really did try. For ISS, I will say, wait until this movie's at a matinee price, then go see it. Yeah, my Mean Girls review, I forgot I'd changed that rating, but you get it. Am I being too nice to this movie? Maybe. Am I going to change my mind or apologize? Hell no. So, ISS, have you seen it? Probably not, but what did you think about it if you have? Or what's your favorite astronaut movie of all time? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Now, if you'll excuse me, the first 4 episodes of Hazbin Hotel are finally out on Amazon Prime Video. Woo! I'm so excited to watch, because I've been looking forward to it for like 4 years. Peace!